Welcome back, guys. We are back again with another video. Today, we're talking about liquidity pools, hedging, and is it really possible to ensure that you do not lose money if price moves to the bottom of your range? As always, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to smash the thumbs up button below. Make sure to subscribe as well, and let's get straight into it. Okay, so, like I said, the topic of this video is risk mitigation, and I'm going to be showing you how, yes, it is very much possible to ensure that if price moves to the bottom of your range, you are hedged such that you have zero US dollar losses in your liquidity pool if that actually plays out. We're going to be using DeFi Buddy to help us calculate this hedge step by step. But first and foremost, we need to have an asset pair where we're providing liquidity. And for today's example, we're going to use Ethereum paired with the US dollar. And second of all, we need to have a concentrated range defined. And so again, for today's example, we're going to be using this concentrated range between around 2844 and 3220. This is roughly a 10-11% wide range for Ethereum. And yes, we're having a little bit of a pullback in price today, but we're assuming that we're entering this pool roughly in the middle of the range to help define and set up our hedge position. So over on DeFi Buddy, you can navigate into the tools area, click on the hedging calculator, and this is going to bring up our hedging calculator that Alex has been working on behind the scenes. And again, I've selected ETH USDC here as the token pair example. Now, it's pulling in the current price of Ethereum live here on the dashboard. Then what we have is we have the ability to define how much US dollars we've put into our liquidity pool. So for today's example, we have about $1,000 deployed into our ETH USDC liquidity pool. Next thing we have to do is we have to define our liquidity range. So just like I said, if I click on this range, we can see it's 2841 to 3220. So I have gone ahead and put in 2841 to 3220. This is our concentrated range. Like I said, it's about 11-12% wide from the lower bound to the upper bound. Then we can put in some estimates for LP yield, i.e. how much yield are we making on a daily basis? Again, depending on if you're providing liquidity on Uniswap or whatever DEX you're using, you can plug in an estimate here. Again, you're never going to get it perfect because daily APRs are changing every single minute, every single day. But, on average, you might be able to get something between 0.15 to 0.25% from your ETH pools. So I'm just putting in 0.2% for today's example with this particular concentrated range. So now it's giving me a summary of my position breakdown. I have a split between around 0.1469 ETH and 550 US dollars. That is the breakdown of the ratio split of my original $1,000 when deployed into this pool at this concentrated range at this exact moment. I have to stress that because obviously the price of Ethereum is changing every minute, so it's going to look slightly different for you when you plug in these different variables. Next thing I can do is I can continue to my hedge strategy. And you've got multiple different options for hedging here. Ultimately, optimal protection is going to allow you to set up minimizing losses at both sides of your range, i.e. if you go out the top or the bottom of your range. A partial hedge is going to help you set up a strategy to mitigate losses. You're not going to fully offset those US dollar losses depending on where price is going. Break even at range is exactly what we're talking about today, which is how do we ensure that we literally lose $0 if price moves to the bottom of our range. And then below range protection is more of an insurance policy. If price keeps moving below the bottom of your range, how do you actually continue to ensure you're protected as price drops lower? So like I said, we're using break even at range for today's example because it means if the price of Ethereum moves from 30.30 right now to the bottom of this range, we're having a strategy and a hedge set up so that we literally have zero US dollar losses by the time price gets down to 28.41. Okay, if I jump back over to DeFi Buddy, we can click on See Hedge Details. Now, this is giving us the breakdown of the exact strategy we need to go and set up using a perpetual DEX. Remember, in order to hedge our position and mitigate risk to the downside, we effectively have to short the equivalent amount of Ethereum there or thereabouts that we have exposure to in our pool. And this is calculating everything based on the US dollar value. So remember, we're measuring, or the yardstick for this particular strategy I'm sharing today is US dollars. We need to ensure that we are ultimately mitigating US dollar losses at the bottom of our range. And so you can see that it's giving me the setup for the hedge position that I need to go ahead and create. Now, using leverage is not mandatory, but it's going to help you be more capital efficient. And ultimately, the more leverage you use, you can see the less margin of your own capital is going to be required. Now, I tend to prefer to use something closer to 2x or 3x leverage maximum when I'm creating these positions. And so you can see in this example, I'll use 2x leverage. So in order to short the correct amount of Ethereum so that I have 0 US dollar losses by the bottom of my range, I need to effectively be shorting 0.239 ETH. Okay. If I use 2x leverage, it's going to require $364 of my own margin. This is covering my exposure to ETH, obviously divided by 2 because I'm using that 2x leverage. Okay, the liquidation price in this scenario would be 44.91. And again, it's giving me a recommended stop loss here, 5.5% above my entry price, ultimately in case Ethereum moves against me in this particular scenario. So what does this look like in practicality? Well, on DeFi Buddy, you can open up your short position across a range of different dexes. It's going to open up a hyperlink to navigate there, but I've already opened this up here over on GMX. And again, remembering the parameters that DeFi Buddy is giving me, the margin required to short 0.239 ETH or 0.24 ETH is going to be $364 of my own capital. Okay, if I jump back over here, you can see that if I type in $364 here, you can see I've selected ETH US dollar, I've selected a short position, I've selected a market order because I'd be opening this at the time at which I enter the position. But essentially, as I type in $364 with 2x leverage selected, you can see that that is allowing me to take on short exposure to 0.24 Ethereum. Okay, that is the exact number DeFi Buddy tells us we need to be short in this position to ensure that we have 0 US dollar losses by the bottom of our range. And so again, you can see everything is matching up really nicely with the parameters we've been given in DeFi Buddy. The only thing left for me to do here is to initiate the position and actually open the short. Okay, if we jump back over to DeFi Buddy, you can see that it gave us that recommended stop loss. Remember, this is not a hard and fast rule, but something that we're recommending based on the wanting to minimize losses. Okay, so this would be a 2% loss of total capital if you actually had that stop loss trigger. So a 5.5% move to the upside would be a net 2% loss of capital, all inclusive of everything from the capital in your pool and the capital being used to create the short in the first place. And so you have to ask yourself the question, are you okay to lose that 2% of capital initially if price moves up against you in the pool? Ultimately, it will get to the point where probably by the top of your range, you're going to have recouped that 2% loss and then some, because price is moving up. The dollar value of your pool is increasing over time as ETH approaches the top end of your range. But if you're wanting to stomach less risk, then ultimately you could have that configured a little bit lower. Again, DEXs like GMX and other protocols allow you to define a take profit and stop loss level. So again, in this scenario, the recommendation is 32.11 as the stop loss area for this particular position. So if I type in 3211, it's giving me the parameters there of the stop loss P&L and what would happen in terms of US dollar losses if price moved against me in this particular scenario. Now, the numbers are ever so slightly different because price is moving here in real time as I'm making this video and when I set up the parameters here about 15-20 minutes ago, but ultimately you're getting the picture of what I'm describing. Now, as I scroll down here, we do get a really nice summary of the capital and yield being used in the position. This is why we had our estimate for daily yield here earlier, because it gives us all of the details about net daily yield in terms of the liquidity pool position, as well as the capital required for the hedge. So obviously $1,000 in our liquidity pool plus that $364 is a total of $1,364. And again, it's breaking down all of the different outcome scenarios below. And this line here, the lower range parameter getting hit, is the one that I'm most concerned about for this particular strategy, because remember, the goal at the outset of the video here was to ensure that if price moves to the lower bound of our range at that 2841 level, we need to have $0 losses. And again, we can see that is the case because the LP profit or loss is actually about negative $48, while the hedge profit is plus $48. That cancels each other out by the bottom of the range. We have 0% net losses, net gains from a P&L perspective, but we're actually still coming out net positive because we have the fees we're earning from the liquidity pool. So hopefully this is all making sense, guys. I want you to go and play with this yourself. This is a very powerful way to have a data-driven process around managing and mitigating risk, ensuring that you are ultimately hedging the downside and making sure that you are not exposing yourself to high or large potential losses. Again, it's not always going to be the case that you need to set up a hedge, but if the market is in indecision, or if you think that we might be moving a little bit lower with asset prices, you may want to have something like this hedge in place so that you're mitigating risk and ensuring $0 losses at the bottom of your range, and ultimately ensuring that you continue to earn really nice fees. That is it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed that breakdown of DeFi Buddy and how to hedge your liquidity pool positions, make sure to smash that thumbs up button below. Head on over to DeFi Buddy and check it out for yourself. Start running those simulations, start playing with the tool and using it to inform your decision making around mitigating risk. Hit subscribe and we'll catch you in the next one.